The holographic display flickered to life in the chrome-plated conference room aboard Nexus Prime, casting an eerie blue glow across the assembled alien faces. Commander Vorthak, his scaled green hide glistening under the artificial lights, slammed his clawed fist onto the metal table with enough force to make the water glasses jump. 3 years, he hissed, forked tongue flicking between razor-sharp teeth. 3 years of this war against the Devourers, and what does Earth contribute? Paperwork? Paperwork. Admiral Zilqen clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among his insectoid species. His compound eyes reflected the holographic battle statistics floating above the table like a disco ball from hell. Now, Commander, he buzzed through his translator, surely you mean to say they contribute moral support? General Brixon, whose translucent body looked like someone had carved him from a particularly expensive chandelier, resonated with a sound like wind chimes having an argument. In my 4,000 years of warfare, I have never witnessed such creative interpretations of military assistance. Tap, tap, tap. The soft sound of fingers on a tablet screen continued from the corner of the room, where Captain Maya Reeves sat with her legs crossed, completely absorbed in whatever she was scribbling on her device. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the kind of expression that suggested she was either deeply concentrating or had just remembered she left her coffee maker on back home. "Are we boring you, Captain?" Vorthak's voice dripped with enough sarcasm to fill a small swimming pool. Maya glanced up briefly, stylus hovering over her screen. "Ma'am?" "Oh no, please continue. This is fascinating." She gave a small smile and went back to her notes. Zilqen's antennae twitched with irritation. "Perhaps you'd care to share Earth's impressive contribution to our cause? I'm sure your peacekeeping forces have quite the body count to report." The human didn't look up from her tablet. "We prefer the term conflict resolution specialists, actually. Conflict resolution." Brixon's laugh sounded like someone dropping a xylophone down a staircase. "How delightfully quaint. Tell me, Captain, exactly how many Devourers have your specialists resolved?" Maya's stylus paused for half a second. "Well, that depends on how you're counting, really." "Counting is fairly straightforward," Vorthak sneered. "Dead enemies. Numbers, simple mathematics, even for a species that still uses what are those primitive projectile weapons called again? Guns," Maya supplied helpfully, still focused on her screen. "Right, guns. Adorable, really. Like bringing a pointed stick to a plasma fight." Admiral Zilqen pulled up a holographic display showing casualty reports from the various species' fleets. "Perhaps some perspective would help our human friend understand the scale of real warfare. My hive fleets have eliminated 4.7 million Devourers in the past 18 months alone." "Impressive," Brixon rumbled, his form shifting to a slightly more prideful shade of amber. "Though my crystal warriors have accounted for over 8 million confirmed kills. Quality over quantity, as they say." Vorthak's chest swelled with reptilian pride. "Amateurs. The scaled Dominion has eliminated 12.3 million of the parasites. We don't just defeat enemies, we make examples of them." Tap, 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 tap. Maya continued her note-taking, occasionally nodding, as if she was keeping track of grocery items rather than genocide statistics. "Aimed humans?" Zilqen's voice carried the kind of false sweetness that made dental work seem pleasant. "Surely Earth's mighty forces have some numbers to share?" "Oh, we have numbers," Maya said, finally looking up with that same mild smile. "Lots of numbers, actually. I've been keeping track." The 3 alien commanders exchanged glances that would have been meaningful if any of them had understood what humans were really capable of. Vorthak leaned back in his chair, which groaned under the weight of his armored bulk, and gestured grandly at the holographic display. "Allow me to elaborate on real military prowess," he declared, pulling up footage of scaled warriors tearing through Devourer ranks with plasma claws. "Operation Crimson Fang alone netted us 2.3 million confirmed eliminations. My personal kill count stands at 47,000. "How quaint," Admiral Zilqen buzzed, his compound eyes reflecting smugness in 17 different directions. "Simple brute force tactics. My hive coordination algorithms have processed 4.7 million devourers through our automated war machines. Efficiency, Commander. We don't waste time with personal glory. General Brixon's form shifted to a deeper shade of amber, resonating with what sounded like crystal goblets being politely murdered. Children, please. The Prismatic Legion has been perfecting warfare since before your species learned to use tools. 8.2 million devourers have shattered against our formations. Quality, not quantity, though we excel at both. Tap, 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 tap. Maya's stylus continued its steady rhythm against her tablet screen. She glanced up briefly, caught Vorthak's eye, and gave him a small nod before returning to her notes. The gesture was so casual, so approving, that it made the reptilian commander puff up with additional pride. Look at that, Vorthak chuckled, gesturing toward the human. Even their representative recognizes superior military achievement when she sees it. Taking notes for her superiors back home, no doubt. Zilqen's mandibles clicked in amusement. Probably writing a report titled How Real Soldiers Fight Wars. Educational material for their little Earth Defense Force. Earth Defense Force, Brixon repeated, his laughter creating a sound like someone playing a broken piano with gardening tools. What do they defend against? Aggressive weather patterns? Particularly hostile houseplants? Maya's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. She made another note, then looked up with innocent curiosity. Oh, don't mind me. Please continue sharing your strategies. This is all very illuminating. Strategies? Vorthak scoffed. Child, we don't have strategies, we have instincts. Raw, predatory instincts honed by millions of years of evolution. Something your soft little species wouldn't understand. Indeed, Zilqen agreed, wings buzzing with condescension. Humans seem more suited for what's the term participation trophies. Everyone gets a medal for showing up? Now that's unfair, Maya interjected mildly, not looking up from her tablet. We don't give out medals for showing up. We save those for actual accomplishments. The three aliens exchanged looks of barely contained mirth. Actual accomplishments. Brixon repeated slowly, savoring each word like fine wine. Such as? Maya paused her note-taking just long enough to meet his gaze. Well, we did manage to show up to this meeting without accidentally declaring war on each other first. That's got to count for something, right? The silence that followed was filled only by the soft hum of the space station's life support systems and the gentle tap, tap, tap of Maya's stylus resuming its work. Maya set down her stylus with the kind of deliberate precision that suggested the fun was about to begin. She looked up at the three alien commanders with the expression of someone who had just finished solving a particularly entertaining crossword puzzle. Interesting statistics, everyone, she said, standing and walking toward the main holographic display. Mind if I share some data? Before anyone could object, she connected her tablet to the central projection system. The display flickered, and suddenly the room was filled with charts, graphs, and analytical breakdowns that made the previous battle footage look like finger paintings. Now, I've been keeping track of some things, Maya continued in the same tone someone might use to discuss their weekend gardening projects. And I have to say, your approaches to this whole Devourer situation are absolutely fascinating from a tactical analysis perspective. Commander Vorthak's scales rippled with confusion. What exactly are you? Oh, let me start with you, Commander, Maya interrupted cheerfully, highlighting a section of data that made Vorthak's impressive kill count look significantly less impressive. The Scaled Dominion. Direct Combat Specialists. Very straightforward. Your 12.3 million eliminations are quite remarkable, especially considering you've lost 8.7 million of your own forces in the process. The reptilian commander's jaw dropped, revealing rows of teeth that suddenly seemed less intimidating and more ornamental. That's a 68% casualty rate on your side, Maya continued, pulling up comparative analysis charts. Which means that for every devourer you eliminate, you lose 0.7 of your own warriors. Mathematically speaking, you're essentially trading your species for theirs at a loss. Admiral Zilqen's compound eyes focused nervously on the display. Now see here. Admiral, you're next. Maya's enthusiasm was the kind reserved for children showing off their science fair projects. The Hive Collective. Technological warfare, automated systems, very efficient. 4.7 million processed through your war machines. Impressive throughput, really. She highlighted another section of data that made Zilqen's antennae twitch with growing alarm. However, your approach is remarkably predictable. The Devourers have adapted to your algorithmic patterns in 73.6% of engagements over the past 6 months. Your efficiency rate has dropped from 91% to 42%. And it's declining by roughly 3% per month. Zilqen's mandibles clicked rapidly, which in his species indicated either extreme agitation or an attempt to perform complex mathematics. Possibly both. At current projections, Maya added helpfully, your war machines will be completely ineffective against Devourer countermeasures within 14 months. General Brixon's crystalline form shifted to a distinctly uncomfortable shade of orange. Surely you don't intend to? Oh, but I do. Maya beamed at him with genuine delight. General, the Prismatic Legion. Ancient, experienced, 8.2 million eliminations. Quite the legacy of warfare. The holographic display shifted to show tactical analyses that made Brixon's 4,000 years of military experience look like an extended game of chess against particularly slow opponents. Your formations are absolutely magnificent, Maya continued with the kind of appreciation usually reserved for museum artifacts. Classic pincer movements, crystalline phalanx charges, prismatic energy bombardments. Textbook examples of traditional warfare. Unfortunately, they're also textbook examples of tactics that were cutting edge about 2,000 years ago. Brixon's resonant frequency dropped to what could only be described as a whimper. The Devourers have complete tactical profiles on your standard formations. They've been using your predictable deployment patterns to set traps for the past 18 months. Your actual kill-to-engagement ratio is 37% below optimal efficiency. Maya stepped back from the display, clasping her hands behind her back like a professor who had just finished explaining why the student's homework was adorably wrong. So, to summarize, she said with the satisfied air of someone who had just organized a particularly messy closet, we have direct combat with unsustainable losses, technological warfare with declining effectiveness, and traditional tactics that the enemy has completely figured out. The 3 alien commanders stared at the display in stunned silence, their impressive kill counts suddenly looking less like achievements and more like participation ribbons in a contest they were slowly losing. But hey, Maya added with a cheerful shrug, at least you all showed up with really impressive numbers, right? Maya tapped her tablet again, and the holographic display shifted to show something that made the 3 alien commanders lean forward in their chairs with expressions ranging from confusion to dawning horror. Now, you're probably wondering what Earth's contribution has been to this whole conflict, Maya said, her tone suggesting she was about to reveal the punchline to a particularly elaborate joke. And I have to admit, our approach has been, let's call it, unconventional. The display showed footage of humans in lab coats, not battle armor. Scientists with clipboards, not soldiers with weapons. Behavioral analysts sitting at computers, not warriors charging into battle. See, while you were all having your measuring contest out there, Maya continued, gesturing toward the battle footage, we've been doing something a bit different. We've been studying the Devourers. Commander Vorthak's forked tongue flicked out nervously. Studying them? That's not warfare, that's homework. Oh, Commander, Maya laughed, and the sound held just enough edge to make his scales twitch. You're absolutely right. It is homework. Very, very thorough homework. She pulled up detailed biological and psychological profiles of the Devourer species, complete with neural mapping, social structure analysis, and behavioral pattern recognition data that would have made a xenobiologist weep with joy. Turns out, when you actually pay attention to your enemy instead of just trying to kill as many as possible, you learn some fascinating things, Maya explained, highlighting specific sections of the data. For instance, did you know that the Devourers operate on a hive mind structure with 17 distinct hierarchical levels? Admiral Zilqen's compound eyes focused on the data with growing alarm. That's classified intelligence. How did you? Oh, we asked them, Maya said casually, as if discussing the weather. Well, technically, we asked the ones we captured. Then we asked the ones who surrendered. Then we asked the ones who defected. Amazing what you can learn when you actually try having a conversation instead of just shooting everything that moves. The holographic display shifted to show psychological warfare operations that made the aliens' direct combat approaches look like children playing with toy soldiers. You see, the Devourer's hive mind is their greatest strength, Maya continued, her voice taking on the tone of a teacher explaining a particularly clever solution. But it's also their greatest weakness. They're completely dependent on their collective consciousness for decision-making, emotional regulation, and even basic problem-solving. She pulled up real-time footage of human psychological operations teams working with captured Devourer specimens. So we figured out how to turn it off. The silence in the room was so complete that even the space station's life support systems seemed to hold their breath. Turn it off? General Brixon's voice cracked like breaking glass. Well, not off exactly, Maya corrected with the kind of precision that made the statement somehow more terrifying. More like redirect it, confuse it, make it work against itself. Humans are remarkably good at psychological manipulation, you know? We've been practicing on each other for thousands of years. The display showed the results of human psychological operations, entire Devourer fleets turning on each other, mass surrenders, and what appeared to be complete mental breakdowns among enemy command structures. While you were all focused on eliminating individual Devourers, Maya explained, her tone becoming more businesslike, we identified the critical nodes in their collective consciousness. The individuals who serve as psychological anchors for their hive mind structure. She highlighted specific targets on the holographic map, showing how human teams had systematically isolated and converted key Devourer leaders. Convert them, and you convert their entire hierarchical branch. It's like imagine if you could convince a general to switch sides, and his entire army would automatically follow. Except in this case, it's not just following orders, it's literally rewiring their collective brain. Commander Vorthak's claws scraped against the metal table. You're telling us that while we were fighting a war, you were fighting what? A therapy session? Oh no, Commander, Maya's smile became genuinely warm, which somehow made it infinitely more unsettling. We were fighting a war. You were just participating in target practice. The holographic display updated to show the real scope of human operations, infiltration teams, psychological warfare specialists, neural manipulation experts, and conversion facilities that had been processing Devourer leadership for months. Current conversion rate stands at roughly 200,000 Devourers per week, Maya announced with the satisfaction of someone reporting quarterly profits. Not eliminations, mind you. Conversions. They're not dead, they're just working for us now. Admiral Zilqen's antennae twitched frantically. Working for you? That's impossible. The Devourers don't change sides, they don't negotiate, they don't. They don't usually have a choice in the matter, Maya interrupted gently. Hive minds are remarkably fragile once you understand their structure. Break the right connections, establish new ones, and suddenly your worst enemies become your most enthusiastic allies. She gestured to the display showing converted Devourer units working alongside human forces in perfect coordination. So, to answer your earlier question about Earth's kill count, Maya said, her voice taking on a tone of mock seriousness, we prefer to think of it as our conversion count. Much more sustainable than your approaches, don't you think? Maya held up her tablet with the casual air of someone showing off vacation photos, completely oblivious to the 3 alien commanders who were staring at her like she had just announced she kept nuclear weapons as houseplants. Oh, this little thing, she said, noticing their attention. I just like keeping track of productivity metrics. You know how it is, quarterly reports, efficiency ratings, return on investment calculations. Standard stuff, really. She tapped the screen, and the holographic display exploded into a data visualization that would have made a statistician weep tears of pure joy. Charts, graphs, pie charts, heat maps, and analytical breakdowns covered every surface of the room in glowing blue light. See, while you were all focused on raw kill counts. Maya continued, scrolling through what appeared to be the most comprehensive military analysis in galactic history. I've been tracking the metrics that actually matter. Resource efficiency per species, tactical effectiveness ratings, psychological impact assessments, long-term strategic value projections, sustainability indices. Commander Vorthak's reptilian brain struggled to process the sheer volume of data. How long have you been collecting this information? Oh, since the beginning of the conflict, Maya replied cheerfully. Someone had to keep track of who was actually contributing versus who was just making noise. I'm very thorough when it comes to performance evaluations. She pulled up a section labeled Comparative Species Analysis that broke down each military force's contributions in ways that made their previous boasting look like toddlers arguing over who had the shinier toy. For example, Commander Vorthak, your scaled dominion, Maya said, highlighting his species data with the enthusiasm of a teacher grading papers. 12.3 million eliminations, yes, but at a resource cost of 400 billion credits, 8.7 million casualties, and a sustainability rating of, let's see, -37%. Vorthak's scales shifted to a sickly yellow color that his species typically reserved for extreme nausea. Admiral Zilqen, the Hive Collective, Maya continued, moving to the next data set. 4.7 million processed eliminations, resource cost of 200 billion credits, declining effectiveness curve, and a projected tactical obsolescence date of next Tuesday. Roughly. Zilqen's mandibles clicked in what sounded suspiciously like mechanical distress. And General Brixon, the Prismatic Legion, 8.2 million eliminations over 4,000 years of warfare experience, which averages out to about 2,000 eliminations per year. That's actually kind of adorable when you put it in perspective. Brixon's crystalline form shifted through several shades of what could only be described as mortified rainbow. But here's where it gets interesting, Maya said, pulling up a new section of data that made the room's lighting seem dim by comparison. Human operations. Total Devourer neutralizations, 847 million. The silence that followed was so profound that it seemed to have its own gravitational pull. I'm sorry, Admiral Zilqen whispered, his translator barely functioning. Did you say 847 million? Million? Yes, Maya confirmed, double-checking her numbers with the casual precision of someone balancing a checkbook. Though to be fair, only about 3% of those were actual eliminations. The rest were conversions, surrenders, defections, psychological breakdowns, voluntary relocations, career changes, and what our psych team likes to call existential realignments. She scrolled through footage showing massive Devourer fleets simply stopping, entire armies laying down their weapons, command structures dissolving as their leaders walked away from the war to pursue other interests. You see, killing your enemies is terribly inefficient, Maya explained with the tone of someone discussing proper recycling techniques. It wastes resources, creates martyrs, and honestly, it's just bad for morale all around. Much better to convince them that they'd rather be doing something else entirely. Commander Vorthak's voice came out as barely more than a croak. 847 million Devourers just gave up? Well, when you put it that way, it sounds like we didn't have to work very hard, Maya laughed. But trust me, psychological warfare is exhausting. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to convince a hive mind species that individualism is more fulfilling than collective consciousness? The therapy sessions alone took months. She pulled up another section showing human operational costs, total resource expenditure, 12 billion credits. Casualty rate, 0.003%. Sustainability rating, positive 912%. Customer satisfaction surveys from converted Devourers, 97% approval rating. General Brixon made a sound like wind chimes being strangled. Customer satisfaction surveys? Oh yes, we always follow up, Maya said proudly. Quality assurance is very important in psychological conversion operations. Most of our former enemies report being much happier in their new lives, We've got former Devourer warriors who are now running coffee shops, teaching kindergarten, writing poetry. It's really quite heartwarming. She showed them testimonial videos of ex-Devourers discussing their career transitions with the enthusiasm typically reserved for weight loss commercials. So when you ask about Earth's contribution to this war, Maya concluded, closing her tablet with a satisfied snap, we don't count bodies. We count problems solved. And according to my calculations, we've solved about 96.7% of the Devourer problem without anyone having to die unnecessarily. She looked up at the three stunned alien commanders with a smile that could have powered a small planet. Any questions about our productivity metrics? Maya glanced at her watch with the casual air of someone checking if they had time for dessert. It then looked back at the three alien commanders who appeared to be experiencing various stages of existential crisis. Oh, that reminds me, she said, as if suddenly remembering she had left cookies in the oven. We're actually in the final phase of operations now. Should probably mention that. She tapped her tablet, and the holographic display shifted to show real-time galactic monitoring feeds. What appeared on screen made the previous revelations look like gentle warm-up exercises for the main event. See, while we've been having this lovely chat, Maya continued, her tone suggesting she was discussing weekend plans rather than galactic warfare. The Devourer species has been, well, how should I put this delicately? They've been having some internal disagreements. The display showed Devourer fleets across 17 different star systems turning their weapons on each other with the enthusiasm of a family reunion gone horribly wrong. Commander Vorthak's voice came out as a strangled whisper. What did you do? Oh, we just introduced them to some new concepts, Maya replied, highlighting different conflict zones with the satisfaction of a teacher showing off a successful science experiment. Democracy, individualism, personal choice, the importance of self-expression. You know, the usual human nonsense that drives collective consciousness species absolutely insane. Admiral Zilqen's compound eyes tracked the spreading chaos across the galactic map. You've turned their hive mind against itself. Well, technically, we've given them multiple hive minds to choose from, Maya corrected with academic precision. Turns out, when you introduce competing ideologies to a species that's used to thinking in perfect unison, they get a bit argumentative. The footage showed what could only be described as the galaxy's most catastrophic philosophical debate, complete with plasma cannons and enough explosions to make a pyrotechnician weep with envy. We've got the traditional Devourers fighting the progressive Devourers who are fighting the moderate Devourers who are fighting the radical reform Devourers, Maya explained, it pointing to different colored markers on the map. And that's not even counting the splinter groups. The neo-traditional Devourers alone have 14 sub-factions. General Brixon's crystalline form had shifted to a shade of transparent that suggested he was trying to become invisible through sheer force of will. How many factions are there now? Maya consulted her tablet with the expression of someone checking their grocery list. Last count? 437 distinct ideological groups, each convinced that they're the only ones who truly understand what it means to be a proper Devourer. She pulled up casualty projections that made the aliens' previous kill counts look like rounding errors. Current projection shows complete species-wide self-destruction within 72 hours, Maya announced with the cheerful efficiency of a weather forecaster predicting sunny skies. They're eliminating each other faster than we ever could have managed, and honestly, they seem to be enjoying the philosophical debates. Very passionate people, the Devourers, once you get them talking about their feelings. The three alien commanders stared at the real-time footage of an entire species tearing itself apart over ideological differences, while Maya watched with the proud expression of Mion, whose garden was growing exactly as planned. The war is over, Admiral Zilqen stated, his voice carrying the hollow tone of someone whose entire worldview had just been fed through a blender. Oh, it's been over for months, Maya agreed easily. We just thought it would be polite to let you all finish your presentations before mentioning it. She closed the tactical display and pulled up what appeared to be personnel files. Which reminds me, Maya said, her tone becoming almost apologetic, I should probably clarify something about those participation trophy humans you mentioned earlier. Commander Vorthak's scales were now a color that didn't appear in any known reptilian biology textbook. What about them? Well, the teams you've been working with? The ones you've been calling our military forces? Maya's smile took on a quality that made the space station's artificial gravity seem inadequate. Those are actually our kindergarten teachers. The silence that followed could have been used to preserve food. Our actual military is currently engaged in some other projects, Maya continued conversationally. Mapping dark matter, establishing diplomatic relations with the entities that live between dimensions, solving that whole entropy problem. You know, the usual Tuesday afternoon activities. She stood up and began collecting her things with the casual efficiency of someone whose workday was coming to an end. They wanted to handle the Devourer situation personally, but I convinced them it would be good practice for our education specialists. Building confidence, developing problem-solving skills, that sort of thing. Professional development is very important in the teaching profession. Maya tucked her tablet under her arm and looked at the three alien commanders with genuine warmth. Thank you all for this delightful meeting. It's been absolutely educational. The transformation in the room was so complete that it seemed like someone had replaced the three alien commanders with entirely different beings. Commander Vorthak, who had been lounging in his chair with reptilian arrogance just an hour ago, now sat ramrod straight with the posture of a cadet addressing a superior officer. Admiral Zilqen's compound eyes tracked Maya's every movement with the intensity usually reserved for studying nuclear physics, but while General Brixon had shifted to a shade of crystalline blue that his species typically displayed only in the presence of their most revered elders. Captain Reeves, Vorthak began, his voice carrying none of its earlier condescension. I believe we may have underestimated the scope of human capabilities. Maya paused in her packing, looking genuinely surprised. Oh, this was just a small operation for us. Barely worth mentioning in our quarterly reports, really. She said it with the same tone someone might use to describe organizing their sock drawer, which somehow made the statement infinitely more terrifying. Admiral Zilqen leaned forward eagerly, his mandibles clicking with what could only be described as desperate interest. Captain, would it be possible for humanity to share some of your tactical insights with our forces? Perhaps some basic strategies that might improve our effectiveness. Basic strategies. Maya tilted her head thoughtfully. Well, I suppose I could put together some beginner-level materials. Introduction to Psychological Warfare 101, maybe some elementary courses in species psychology and basic conflict resolution theory. General Brixon's resonant frequency rose to an almost pleading pitch. We would be honored to learn from human expertise. Our 4,000 years of military experience seem rather inadequate in comparison. Oh, don't feel bad about that, Maya said kindly, closing her tablet case. 4,000 years is a very respectable amount of time for a species to spend figuring things out. Humans just approach problems differently. We tend to think about the long-term consequences before we start shooting things. She glanced at her watch again, and her expression shifted to mild concern. Speaking of long-term consequences, I really should be going. I have a parent-teacher conference to attend in an hour, and if I'm late, my daughter's teacher is going to think I don't take her education seriously. The three alien commanders exchanged glances that somehow managed to convey both confusion and desperate curiosity simultaneously. Your daughter? Vorthak ventured carefully. Oh yes, she's 8 years old and absolutely brilliant, Maya beamed with parental pride. Her science fair project this year is about quantum mechanics applications in baking. She's managed to create cupcakes that exist in multiple flavor states simultaneously until you bite them. The judges are going to lose their minds. She stood up and slung her bag over her shoulder with the casual efficiency of someone whose day was just getting started. I'll have my assistant send over those introductory materials I mentioned, Maya continued, walking toward the door. Fair warning though, the basic course load is only about 300 hours of study. We've found that most species need at least 6 months to grasp the fundamental concepts before they can move on to intermediate techniques. Admiral Zilqen's voice was barely above a whisper. "What were you working on during our meeting? Those notes you were taking?" Maya paused at the door and looked back with genuine amusement. "Oh, those weren't notes about the meeting. I was doing my taxes. April 15th deadline, you know how it is. Had to squeeze it in somewhere, and honestly, listening to you all compare kill counts wasn't exactly requiring my full attention." She held up her tablet, showing what was clearly a tax preparation application complete with itemized deductions and charitable contribution calculations. "Though I did manage to write off this meeting as a business expense," she added cheerfully. "Professional development and cross-species consultation fees. Every little bit helps during tax season." Maya walked toward the exit, humming what sounded suspiciously like a children's lullaby. Leaving 3 of the galaxy's most feared military commanders sitting in stunned silence around a conference table covered in holographic displays showing the end of a galactic war that had apparently been resolved by humanity's equivalent of substitute teachers. The soft sound of her humming faded down the corridor, leaving only the gentle hum of the space station's life support systems and the quiet clicking of Admiral Zilqen's mandibles as he tried to process what had just happened to his understanding of the universe.